This is a story about the most important journey of my life. But it's less about where I went than why I went there in the first place.
You know, it's an uphill climb, trying to manage a serious chronic disease like type 1 diabetes.
There is a man who is on a year-long rock climbing journey, though, around the country to help raise awareness.
Facing extreme weather, encounters with bears, and some of the country's most significant and monumental climbs.
Originally, I'm from New York. I was diagnosed at age 16 with diabetes, type 1, and I've always been really passionate about climbing, and I wanted to find a way to continue climbing despite having a challenging diagnosis.
And this year you climbed 360 days of climbing, right?
That's
365 days of climbing.
So today the goal is to make 365 consecutive days of climbing, and today is day 196.
All right, we got some video of you because you've been some pretty cool places.
But the spectacular scenery is really only part of the story, because adventure begins where our sense of security ends. I'm Steve Riker, and I've had type 1 diabetes for 14 years. And while it's a challenging condition that has no cure, in a way, what it's given me is something that I view as a gift. Project 365 is my journey to challenge diabetes in the vertical world and prove that diabetes is what we make of it. We're not victims. We do not have to suffer. We have the choice to push back. I decided to climb every single day for 365 days consecutively to demonstrate that even though I don't have a choice about whether or not I have to deal with diabetes, that diabetes doesn't have to be the biggest challenge that I'm able to face in my life. Life is filled with challenge, and each challenge carries with it risk. And diabetes is no exception to that. We have the choice to meet these challenges head-on every single day and to manage these risks so they don't limit us. Because life with diabetes is still about life. On a given day, I'll take about 5 to 10 insulin injections, and I'll probably draw blood by pricking my fingers and squeezing a little blood out, probably as many times. Missing the mark is a big concern with balancing your blood sugar, because if you go too low, there's always the risk that you can actually bottom out to the point where you go unconscious and even die. Go the other direction, your blood sugar is too high, there's all sorts of long-term complications, kidney failure, blindness, amputations, loss of eyesight. Given the risks of diabetes and the obvious risks of climbing, why combine the two? The short answer is because we can. Managing the risks of diabetes doesn't have to define us as the central object in our lives. We have the choice of where we want to bring our diabetes. It's important to be aware of the medical risks, not because we can avoid them altogether, but because we need to manage those risks proactively. If a person can manage their diabetes on the ground, then they can bring their diabetes into the vertical world. It's just a different context. It's been 14 years of ongoing struggle for me, mostly trial and error that has rarely been graceful. But the further I push myself, the more I can learn. I like to think that living with diabetes for 13 years before I started Project 365 really conditioned me for the climbing challenges that I faced during an entire year of living on the road and climbing every single day. My wife Stephanie was willing to sell all her stuff along with me and live out of a car for a year to demonstrate our vision of diabetes empowerment.
Her contribution to Project 365 frequently put her behind the lens. But this was, from the very outset, our mission together.
I was really interested in climbing for as long as I can remember, even from the time that I was a little kid, but I never really did anything about that until I was diagnosed with diabetes. And so in a way, diabetes was a catalyst. It forced me to act and to take some control in my own life to move towards the things that I wanted to be able to do. And climbing was really that main thing, that central object in terms of what I wanted.
Without the challenge of diabetes, I may never have been drawn to climbing and the places that Project 365 took me. As Project 365 begins, I feel relief initially. The anticipation is over.
Should I be smiling or should I be serious? I feel like I shouldn't be smiling.
But eventually the reality of our situation sets in. We have no jobs to go back to, no home to go back to, and no stuff to go back to. We've sold everything that we can to help fund the project and make room in the car. I keep telling myself that full commitment is where adventure and creativity can really breathe. I sure hope that's true.
Day one was January 16th, 2012, which was my 13-year anniversary of the diagnosis when I became aware that I had type 1 diabetes.
Since we're starting in January, we've decided to begin in San Diego, California. The climbing here is interesting and easily accessible. And better yet, the weather is amazing. But this is just the beginning, and I know that I have to step outside my comfort zone. The physical act of climbing contains obvious challenge. But as the project continues, I'm beginning to realize that the climbing is really the easy part. It's what I'm going to do in between the climbing that's going to be difficult. Day-to-day life is the battle, with no tangible end in sight, and no viable option to turn back. But this is what I've signed up for, and making a bold statement requires significant action. Whether or not Project 365 is a success is not the main issue. The risk is worth it, even if I fail completely. As I move further into the project, I begin to push myself physically on shorter climbs. Other longer climbs are just plain scary and challenge me on an emotional level. Sometimes getting to the climb itself is the difficult bit, and more often than not, I'm struggling with my own failures. But whether it's the size of the wall you're trying to climb that makes it difficult, or the weather that you're worried about outrunning, there's a reason that climbing is a universal symbol for the relationship between struggle and reward. But climbing is only one struggle. Waking up to snow and rain is a game changer. Our carefully planned itinerary may have to go out the window. For now, we can just sleep in the car until our gear dries off. And we'll just have to find some piece of rock somewhere that's dry enough to climb.
Sometimes sleeping in the car isn't that bad. It's just when there's all this stuff behind, I can't put the seat down.
Yeah.
And it's like my head is down, but it's like cockeyed like this.
But it's impossible to completely avoid rain. Sometimes I can work around it, or even climb indoors. It doesn't feel great on days that I have to just go through the motions to satisfy the requirement.
I just know that I've been sleeping in the mud for the last 2 nights, and climbing is not ideal when it's like this.
And then, when the rain goes away, there's the heat.
heading over the mountains into Nevada. Middle of June, it's like 90, 100 degrees. It's tough on the car, and the air conditioning doesn't work so well, and I got to keep the insulin relatively cool, so basically 100 miles before the next gas. And so basically my plan, I'm just kind of hanging out here. You can see I'm recharging the solar gear in the sun, because that is something that there is plenty of. We have sun in excess out here.
Without refrigeration, I have to get creative to keep my insulin cool. If my medication gets too hot, it won't work, putting my life at risk. But I'm learning to adapt to the challenges in my environment. And new challenges demand new creativity in order to find solutions. Life in the mountains is harsh and demanding. Struggle is a given, and even the smallest amounts of success come only with great effort. It occurs to me that my life in the vertical world is a perfect mirror of my life with diabetes.
Why do we do this, Rob?
Because I like to watch you hate yourself. Suffering builds character.
Climbing doesn't have to be fun to be fun. And my time climbing with Rob is a master's course in enjoying hardship, a useful lesson when adapting diabetes management to life in the mountains.
But since it's such a big ordeal to stop and get to your blood glucose meter, and to be fair, when you're in sub 20 degree temperatures, the reliability and accuracy of your equipment, at least according to the manufacturer specs, really decreases. So it's hard to know. I mean, it's hard to rely on equipment to regulate your blood sugar. You kind of have to go by feel to a certain extent.
Trying to keep my blood sugar balance without complete reliance on my monitoring equipment is like flying blind. It's possible to do it adequately if circumstances require it, but I'm shaving that margin of error down pretty thin. Self-awareness and intuition are important things to have, just like map and compass skills in the age of GPS.
Oh, insulin time. Ordinarily, I don't mind, but out here, having to take a shot, not my favorite thing to do. Gotta go through a bunch of layers.
I find the layering process unenjoyable, especially when it takes place in the front seat of a small vehicle. But it's all a necessary part of my daily routine, because frozen insulin won't work, and without insulin, I can't climb. Climbing isn't something that only takes place on big, beautiful objectives in the wild. It's actually becoming my way to interpret the world around me. This epiphany is not of my own design. It's more pragmatic than anything else. Time and location don't always permit spectacular climbing. But I'm not out here to boost my climbing resume or my ego. Unrecognizable, forgettable climbing is still climbing. Taking responsibility to go through the motions, even with no payoff at the end, is a big part of the message. But I'm seeking a delicate balance between routes that will challenge me while not defeating me entirely. If I aim too far below my limit, I'll just get bored. Harder routes require a lot more patience, and I'm pacing myself for an entire year. I can't just take a break. But I am able to alternate physically challenging routes with mentally taxing ones. Controlling fear is a useful exercise, both for climbing and in diabetes. Managing risk is always what I'm doing, both in and out of the vertical world. But I'm still finding it hard to control my mind. The Ironman Traverse in the buttermilks of California is proving especially difficult for me. I'm having more and more difficulty not comparing myself to other climbers and their abilities. I know that I can do all the moves individually, I just can't get them to flow together. So I keep throwing myself at this problem and hoping. But it just seems to create a vicious cycle. I keep falling off, and now I can't stop fixating on my failure. It's our last day here, and without any expectation of success, I decide to give it one last try. I'm not thinking about falling. I'm not thinking about anything at all, really. I've switched my conscious mind off, and I'm just climbing. I can't place exactly what I've done differently this time, and I don't even care. It just feels great to have some success.
The reality is when you're climbing at your limit, it's a pretty low percentage endeavor. There's a lot more times that you fail than you don't. You have to be able to accept the fact that you're going to get shut down a lot. I am not good at dealing with high gravity days. And it sucks because I'm always telling other people that they need to give themselves room to fail, and I can't do it myself. I get all pissed.
I have to learn patience in my climbing, and my latest project, a gently overhanging 512B in Red Rock Canyon, Nevada, seems to be the perfect teacher. It's longer and harder than anything I've tried up till this point. But I really want my climbing to eclipse my diabetes, so I'll keep throwing myself at this thing until I can get it. But I can't just power through the hard moves and be done. I have to climb efficiently and be smart. After days of repeated effort, this strategy is starting to work, but it's still not good enough to get me to the top without falling. I don't want to give up, even though the weather is starting to get too hot, but I'm getting emotionally burned out. I need to step back and return to this route later in the year when I'm stronger and more mentally prepared.
Diabetes really plays very heavily on a person's emotions, and it's very, very frustrating when your blood sugar goes high and all you're thinking in your mind is about the complications that go along with high blood sugar. Or when your blood sugar goes low and all you're thinking about is the fact that this could be it. I could die if my blood sugar keeps going low and I'm not able to bring it back up. It takes a lot of patience to respond rationally. And of course, climbing has its own set of fears too. And when climbing fears and diabetes fears, if those team up, you can't function like that if you're living in fear.
Project 365 is moving into April, and I'm excited to push my limits on the big walls of Zion National Park in southwest Utah. Rob and I are planning to climb a 1,200-foot route called Moonlight Buttress. It's a little bit taller than the Empire State Building in New York, and significantly longer than any route that I've climbed up till this point. I have to be prepared to handle any emergency that arises on the wall. It could be multiple days before we're back down on the ground. I can go for several hours at a time without taking any insulin, and this usually works really well on shorter routes. If my blood sugar goes low from taking too much insulin, I can deal with that when I'm back on the ground. But Moonlight Buttress is going to be different. I'll be up there long enough that I'll have to take insulin, and if my sugar goes high or low, I'll have to deal with it up there. Leading the first several pitches off the ground, I feel remarkably good. I'm more concerned about low blood sugar, so I've taken a little less insulin than normal. But just because I'm feeling good doesn't mean I don't have to check my blood sugar. And when I do stop to check, I find that my sugar is over 3 times what it should be. I can't continue unless I take some insulin to bring it down. I weigh my options for a few moments, and then I hesitate. Taking insulin on a climb is something I've always avoided because of the risk of low blood sugar. Just because I have a high reading right now doesn't mean I won't wind up facing a low in another couple of hours. But I'm choosing to put my fear aside and put myself to the test. After all, that's the only reason I'm out here in the first place. If I choose to bail, I'll just be letting the fear of diabetes win. So I turn my attention to the remaining 900 feet of the route. Now we're in the full sun, and I'd like to think that I've been drinking enough water to keep the dehydration from sneaking up on me. My high blood sugar is causing my kidneys to use precious fluid to flush the sugar out of my body, creating a greater deficit. Soon I begin to experience severe cramps in my hands and arms. But I made the commitment to continue on, and at this point, turning around would be more work than just going to the top. Rob leads the next two pitches, and as I'm waiting for my turn to climb again, I can't help but wonder if I made the right decision. I share my doubts with Rob, but he's having none of it. He reminds me that we're up here to challenge these fears and that together, as a team, we can face whatever risk presents itself. We stop for lunch at a belay, 700 feet off the ground. I kind of want to skip lunch because I don't want to have to deal with more insulin. But my energy is fading, so this isn't a realistic option. And it's my turn to lead the last pitches to the summit. The potential risk factors of both climbing and diabetes are all set to converge on me. I know Rob is on the other end of the rope, but it's just me and my diabetes up here, and I feel afraid and exposed. But when my worries are interrupted by the feeling of my blood sugar dropping, I'm distracted long enough to actually deal with the problem instead of just thinking about it. Within a short while, I've corrected my blood sugar and I'm standing on the summit. Trying to avoid the challenge only made the fear grow in my mind. When I finally confronted it, I came out on top. After my breakthrough in Zion, I'm hoping that I'm ready for something bigger. El Capitan in Yosemite National Park. I've enlisted some technology to stack the odds in my favor, a continuous glucose monitor given to me by a good friend. It's a small sensor injected under my skin that transmits almost real-time blood sugar readings to a digital readout that I can carry around in my pocket. I'll still have to prick my fingers and test my blood, but now I'll have a lot more valuable information about what happens in between those tests. I can see if my blood sugar is falling before it creates an emergency. This will allow me to focus more on my climbing and less on my diabetes. And I need every advantage I can get. El Capitan is over 3,000 feet tall. It's larger than anything I've even dared to dream of at this point. Upon arrival, my partner Steve and I are unable to think of any excuses good enough to keep us off the wall. So we commit to a seemingly endless sea of beautiful granite. It looks like this heroic voyage is well on its way. And I want nothing more than to tell about how we battled to the top of El Cap in fine style. But the further we go, the more it seems like we're getting in over our heads. We came to Yosemite and immediately attempted the biggest objective in the valley, lured in by its siren song and just a little bit of overconfidence. But we're up here to learn, not show off. And since it looks like we're not going to get bragging rights out of this climb, we may as well get an education. We learn that we brought too much food and not enough water. We learn that we have room for improvement in terms of our rope management. And we learn that packing too heavy on a wall makes you slower and more vulnerable. But even with all of this, the decision to bail and go down is bittersweet. From a climbing standpoint, it definitely feels like a loss. But I decide that I'm not really in a position to complain. I got myself into a jam and problem solved to get myself out. While I didn't gain the summit, I did gain insight, and the summit will still be there when I come back. The fact that I've been able to take my insulin, eat meals, and balance my blood sugar in the vertical world is a major success for me. But the biggest challenges I'm facing as part of Project 365 don't take place in the vertical world at all. When my partner Steve and I arrived in Yosemite, we had a one-track mind. We were completely focused on getting on El Cap. We immediately began ferrying loads of our gear to the base of the route we had planned to climb, Lurking Fear. The following morning, just as we were preparing to climb, Steve returned from the car with some startling news. The news was that it was gone.
We do not know where it is, where it went, or why it is gone from where we left it. We do know that it's gone, along with about 50% of the camera equipment, my laptop, our wallets, cell phones, solar gear, and all of our food and remainder of our clothing that's not with us. The good news is that we do still have a helmet and some climbing gear, so in the event that we feel the need to climb up to a nice scenic location from which to pitch ourselves, we do have that option to go out in style. We can always edit this out if we find my computer.
The disappearance of my car is absolutely catastrophic and devastating. I have literally all my possessions in the world in that car. The material loss hurts, but that's not the biggest problem. I can't begin to count how many hours I've put into capturing photos and video and saving them to the hard drives that are in my car that is now gone. But my worst fears of complete loss are mercifully not realized. A bear had broken into the storage lockbox on top of the car and was caught in the act by National Park Service rangers who had impounded the car to avoid further damage.
Apparently they're not kidding when they say that bears are really smart and will break into any vehicles with any food anywhere in them, even if the food is not visible and triple packaged.
From the outside looking in, my challenge is climbing every single day. Or maybe having diabetes. Or maybe both. But really, the greatest amount of daily effort goes into maintaining morale. Just going through the motions in spite of the fact that I feel like I'm constantly failing.
About 85% of the time I felt like giving up. Probably about 13% of the time I felt like things were going okay. Not bad, but things were going pretty good. And about 2% of the time, which roughly translates to about 7 days cumulatively throughout the whole project, that I really felt like I was really killing it.
Most days are filled with enough climbing to distract me, but when the sun goes down, my mind is up for grabs. Countless nights are spent grappling with the realization that if I fail in this project, we'll have nothing to go back to. I struggle to stay in the present. Don't think too far ahead. Just get through one more day.
Stephanie and I were pretty much out of money at the point that we were about halfway through the project or so. And she happened to receive a job offer from a major airline, seemingly out of the blue. We weighed the consequences of the fact that it could really complicate everything and that it was going to make both of our lives harder in the short term. And it did.
I know it's going to be difficult for you, Steve, but this is going to be your first chance to really, truly test yourself.
It's like I get a new level of challenge and I kind of start to deal with that and assimilate it, and then something else comes along and then bumps it up a little bit, and I mean, which is good, but it's also, it's a lot.
During the days leading up to Stephanie's departure, we are just trying to wrap our heads around what this change is going to mean for us. But I know that there's really no way to prepare for this. I try to anticipate what it will be like continuing the project without Stephanie by my side. I brace myself against the loneliness, but I'm not able to anticipate the void that this will create. And when the impact finally hits, all I can think is that I just want this whole thing to be over. All the glue that has held me together mentally is starting to disintegrate. No sense of familiarity, no sense of safety, just desperation. I keep reminding myself that this is what I signed up for. So I put all of my anxiety and worry into my climbing and camera work, which have both gotten more complicated since I'm out here by myself. Some days I climb easy routes without a rope. It feels great to be free and to explore. When I want to venture into steeper terrain, I use a self-belayed top rope system. It's inelegant and time-consuming, but I feel like it's probably better for me not to have too much free time to think.
Do you ever spend a lot of time by yourself? It kind of messes with your head.
I felt disconnected because I felt like people thought I was out there on some kind of a joyride, and the reality was that I was alone, broke, sitting in the middle of a cow pasture, muttering to myself, uninsurable, living out of my car. It didn't really feel exactly like living the dream.
Kind of get used to it after a while. It's part of the lifestyle. It's part of living the dream.
Steve had been my partner in Yosemite, and his parting gift has been to help me repair my car and get me down the road another stretch. It's the July 4th weekend, and I'm heading into Salt Lake City to pick up Rob. Our plan is to head back east together, where we each have family to stay with. We can climb along the way. My car has a long history of being relatively unreliable, so when it breaks down, I just try to laugh it off and take it as par for the course.
Yep, it's an engine.
The big on-off switch there. We just need to flip it from off to on, then it'll go. Out of sight, out of mind.
This car has been to over 12 mechanics between New York and California. Nobody's been able to give me a definitive answer as to what is wrong with it. They just tell me it's old, and I have to go easy on it. Up till this point, adding oil or a little duct tape has always done the trick to get me back on the road. And so we continue out of Utah, into Wyoming, through South Dakota, well, almost through South Dakota.
Thank you for calling AAA Roadside Assistance.
Hi, I would like some roadside assistance. Let's see if it's really broken. Sounds broken. It's gotta be the transmission. The transmission's gonna cost more than the car is worth. I would say I'm probably less than 50 miles, probably actually less than 25 miles, I would guess, from Sioux Falls.
We're stranded in the middle of nowhere, and the project is dangling by a thread. Again. I feel like running into oncoming traffic. But Rob, he seems to be having the time of his life. He simply refuses to let anything spoil his fun. I'm just thankful that we managed to sneak in a climb that morning. This gives us about 24 hours to make a decision about how to get back on the road. We spend a sleepless night in the parking lot of a local transmission shop, where we come to the conclusion that the only way to continue Project 365 is to abandon the car. It's July 4th weekend. Nobody is open for business. And even if they were, it would take days for the car to get fixed. In an hour's time, I have to say goodbye to my vehicle that has become my home in favor of saving Project 365. It's like feeling the anchor lines snap. The last residual bit of stability that I have in my life is gone. I try to focus on the fact that the well wishes inscribed on the car are still with us, even if the car is not. But there is no time to reflect. So I concentrate on packing every square inch of this rental car so that we can get back on the road. We find our daily climbing in rest area buildering along the way. We have to make a sub-24-hour push to New York to avoid getting charged an exorbitant fee for the rental car.
The Diddler Traverse.
Predictably, Rob makes this an entertaining experience. Our absurd quest to climb every single day must live on. And so we sprint eastward, where we can regroup at my dad's house in New York.
And a lot of the days, it was basically felt like just going through the motions. But going through the motions is sometimes what it takes when things are tough and you can't really focus on anything else.
But even when things are at their most grim, there's always an underlying message of hope and empowerment, even when I'm not able to see it. In New York, with help from my dad, I find a new vehicle, one that's better suited to the itinerant nature of Project 365, and it's not long before I'm back on the road, making my way down to Atlanta, where I have an opportunity to climb with a group of young people who also live with type 1 diabetes. After spending so much time alone, struggling to share the message of diabetes empowerment, it really feels like a gift being able to join this group. I'm reminded that the message of diabetes empowerment is not my own. It's an ideal that we all aspire to on some level. Seeing other people with diabetes connect to this concept inspires me, and it gives me hope to finish my journey. Inspiration is an abstract concept. You can't quantify it on a spreadsheet. But that doesn't mean it's not important or that it doesn't change lives. I know because for the first time in a long while, I'm feeling more inspiration than worry.
So one day in late August, I get this email from a guy in Canada named Martin.
Martin also has type 1 diabetes, and he's a climber. He's been following the blog that I've been keeping, and he wants to do some climbing with me up in the Bugaboo Mountains in British Columbia. After almost 5 months away from the project, Stephanie has been able to get some time off of work and is going to join me for this trip. It's hard to know what to expect. I've never met Martin before.
When you're dealing with type 1 diabetes, you're just adding an extra layer of responsibility. Mm-hmm. You deal with that just like any other objective hazard you may face in climbing.
Yeah. I was really excited about the fact that Martin and we were right on the same page in the way that we viewed life with diabetes and climbing.
How many years have you had type 1 for?
It's been about 9.5 years now. I continued to be quite active even after I was diagnosed with the diabetes. But when I came across your blog this summer, I was really quite excited. It was the first time I've seen another type 1 very active climber.
I was really interested to hear how another person with diabetes who is also a climber, who I could really relate to, how he dealt with the fear.
It is discouraging, right? You spend a few days kind of reflecting and thinking, what could have happened. You kind of brush yourself off after an incident and learn from it and carry on. I'm not gonna let this get in the way. And there's things I want to do in my life.
Generally, when people go out, to the mountains, they don't go there to die. They just go there to live.
This is my first time climbing in the Bugaboos, a place that I've dreamed about for as long as I can remember. The fact that I get to share this experience with Martin, who also has diabetes, makes it that much more special. I'm focused on each foot placement, on each move, on every inch of rock I'm traveling across. I feel free and limitless. From the time I was diagnosed with diabetes at age 16, I only wanted to feel normal again. And that's exactly how I feel when I'm climbing with Martin. Some people think what we're doing is exceptional, but to us, it just feels normal. This is my 250th day of climbing, and I finally found what I set out looking for in the mountains. We are not incredible athletes, we are just climbers, doing very ordinary things in some very out-of-the-way places. Diabetes is not our burden, it's the glue that cements our partnership. But Project 365 isn't over yet. I'm back in Utah to complete the remaining months. I know that I'm going to need that time to prepare. I still have an unfinished project in nearby Las Vegas, the route that spit me off repeatedly almost a year ago. So I'm turning my attention to bouldering so that I can build my power. I'm trying harder boulder problems than I ever have before. And while my progress isn't spectacular, it is progress. Now I only have one thing left to do. Go back to Las Vegas and finish this climb up.
I'd gotten an email from another Type 1 climber from New York this time. His name is Jason. Jason was going to fly out from New York to Las Vegas to climb with me for the last 3 days of the project.
But what if I've come all this way just to fail at the last moment? I'm not good under pressure. I always try to avoid it. I haven't been feeling well the last couple of days, but I figure it's still worth giving it a shot since Jason's here. I don't want him to have come all this way for nothing. I'm hoping the route has gotten easier, or that I've gotten significantly stronger. But in the end, it's just as difficult as I remember it being. And the only memory that I can really connect to is that of falling off. After repeated attempts, I feel completely shattered. It's day 364, and I'm heading out bouldering with Jason. I'm taking an easy day today to prepare for my final attempt tomorrow. Jason isn't feeling any pressure. He's motivated to get after it, and he's working on a project that is harder than anything either of us have attempted. He's definitely doing the heavy lifting in terms of today's climbing, and it's lighting a fire under me. When Jason sends his project, it feels awesome. The bar has just been raised.
I knew that if I was going to get it, I had to get it my first shot while I was completely fresh. So I made sure I was really thoroughly warmed up, and I spent a little time talking to Jason. And
as I begin climbing, I think about the conversation that I've been having with Jason about excuses. Jason has a family and a full-time job. I have no family and no job. We both have diabetes, which the federal government calls a disability. Between the two of us, we've managed to eliminate 90% of the excuses people seem to use for not making adventure part of their lives. Part of my mind is aware that I'm in the crux of the route, the hardest moves that should be causing me to succumb to gravity. But something is different this time. Something wonderful is happening, and I can't quite put my finger on what it is or why. I can't be distracted by my forearms burning or my fingers that can barely hold on. I feel like letting go. I feel like falling. But this is the final day of Project 365, and I have not come this far to be denied. Then suddenly, it's over. I'm at the chains. It's done. My hardest route yet.
That was fantastic.
Thanks, Adam. Couldn't have picked a better way for that to go down, too. I mean, like, the climb itself, like, the climb is just a climb. There's always going to be more climbs, but being able to, like, do it today and with you and, like, having everybody here and stuff is just, like, that's what really makes it. It's just, like, awesome for me.
Really proud of you.
Thanks, babe.
That was great.
You have some spinach in your teeth. 365 days of climbing. It's a good start.
After 79,419 feet of climbing, over 15 vertical miles, 1,825 injections of insulin, and 365 days, our journey is complete. I owe an enormous debt of gratitude to my partners for their time, their love, their help, and their support. Without the illumination of friendship to guide me through the darkest parts, I could never have made it through Project 365.
I built this box, I did it by myself.
But as I've repeatedly said, the completion of Project 365 is just the beginning. Stephanie and I founded a 501c3 nonprofit organization called Sweetest Summit, a 100% volunteer-operated adaptive guide service for people with diabetes, committed to sharing the message of diabetes empowerment through experiential education and adventure in and around Zion National Park. Diabetes is what we make of it, but the real question is, what will you do? Will diabetes define your limitations, or will it drive you to shatter them? That choice is a gift, and it belongs to us every single day, 365 days a year.
'Cause you don't remember what I'm here for. But still, 'cause it don't mean a thing to him how many times before I've been. And I can't get his money back, I know that he's gonna ask. Isn't it fitting the day you die was such a beautiful day? Last days of lives, remember that's why that's all the sunny month of May. Don't let me go alone, son, so by his bed I'll wait. But he won't remember after he's gone away. And I will, 'cause the world's alive without a cloud in the sky. And broke the ocean floor